buzz of my phone alarm cut through the stillness. It was my 34th birthday. No messages, no calls. Just an empty bed beside me. Matthew's side cold, untouched. He had promised. "I'll call first thing in the morning, Lil. You know I hate missing your birthday." But 7 a.m. passed, then 8, then 9. Still nothing. Downstairs I tried to smile as Andrew and Ellis scrambled to surprise me with birthday pancakes. Syrup everywhere, the pancakes barely cooked, but their little faces were glowing with pride. "Mummy, when's Daddy calling?" Ella asked, syrup dripping down her cheek. "Soon, sweetheart," I said, steady as I could. "He's probably just busy with work." But I knew something was wrong. I could feel it, a dull pressure building behind my ribs like a warning. By 11 o'clock I broke down and called him. The international ringtone buzzed once, twice. Then he picked up. "Hey," he said too casually. In the background, music, laughter, glasses clinking, not a meeting. "It's my birthday," I said quietly. A pause, then a half laugh. "Right, sorry about that. Lost track of time." A woman's voice drifted through the line, too close, too familiar. "Matt, who is it? Tell them to call back later." And just like that, my stomach dropped. It was her voice. Alexandra. My sister. "Is that Alex?" I asked, my voice sounding like it belonged to someone else. Another pause. Then Matthew, still laughing, said, "Yeah, crazy coincidence. Ran into her here." And then she took the phone. "Happy birthday, sis." Surprise. It felt like a knife. A mocking, cruel knife wrapped in fake cheer. "How long?" I asked, cold and direct. Alex laughed. Nervous, sharp. "Don't be ridiculous," she snapped. But I knew. Then she said it. "If you must know, almost a year. He's divorcing you and upgrading. You really let yourself go after Ella was born." I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just let the phone fall to the floor and stared at the kitchen tiles. Numb. That same kitchen Matthew and I had remodeled together. That same floor where Andrew took his first steps. I sat there, hands clenched in my lap, trying to breathe through the burn building in my chest. Eventually, I picked up my phone. Blocked them both. I wouldn't give them the satisfaction of my anger. Let them stew in Lake Como, wondering if I was falling apart. I wasn't. Not yet. I picked up the kids from school, kept my mask on. I baked my own cake. I helped with homework. I answered Andrew's questions about Daddy with carefully rehearsed lies. And that night, when the house was quiet, I opened the closet and pulled down the old storage box, the one filled with photos from before Matthew, before I became Mrs. Chambers back, when I was just Lily Morrison. The photos didn't make me cry. They lit something in me. That girl had fire. She had plans. She had purpose. And I realized something sitting there on the floor with a photo album in my lap. Matthew wanted a divorce? Fine. But this wouldn't be the end of my story. It would be the start of something much bigger. I barely slept that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Matthew's face and heard Alexandra's voice, sweet and venomous, whispering, "He's upgrading." But by sunrise, the grief had hardened into something sharper. Focus. At 5 a.m., I got up, slipped on my robe, and padded downstairs. The house was still. The kind of still that lets you hear your own heartbeat. I stood outside Matthew's office, the room he always called off limits, confidential business space. Like I couldn't possibly understand what he did. He'd underestimated me for years. Not today. I turned the handle. Unlocked. The door opened with a soft click, and I stepped into a world that felt nothing like the rest of our home. No family photos, no kid drawings, just sterile surfaces, framed degrees, and a single image of Matthew shaking hands with a mayor at some event I wasn't invited to. I turned on the desk lamp and opened the filing cabinet. Client folders, contracts, budgets. Then in a drawer labeled pending, I found it. A thick folder with the words Project Apex printed in bold. It was an ambitious proposal for a massive commercial development in Northern Virginia. The kind of deal that would skyrocket Matthew's company from regional to national. I scanned through the designs, sustainable infrastructure, local artist integration, community garden space, education hubs. This wasn't his style. Not even close. Matthew always said things like, "Public art's just wasted space," or "Community gardens don't turn profits." But what made my blood run cold was the name on the last page. Ryan Calloway. I froze. Ryan Calloway. From Westlake High. The boy who taught me to drive stick shift. Who took me to senior prom. Who hugged me so tightly the day I got my teaching job, whispering, "I always knew you'd make it." We drifted apart after college. Life happened. He moved. I got married. But now he was here. On paper. And my husband's biggest deal. And this deal was supposed to close next week. Matthew wasn't in Lake Como on business. He was having a getaway with my sister while pretending to finalize a stolen pitch. I opened Matthew's laptop, still logged in, and checked his calendar. Tuesday, New York, Callaway Development, final presentation. I turned to my own laptop, pulled up Callaway's company website, and started comparing. Every single line. The community concepts, lifted straight from Ryan's past projects. The phrasing, identical to language published in development journals I now saw bookmarked in Matthew's browser history. I sat back in the chair, my pulse hammering in my ears. He hadn't just betrayed me. He was a fraud, a thief. And he was planning to build his empire on someone else's work. Someone I used to know. Someone who once believed in me. I didn't think. I just dialed. Callaway Development. A voice answered. "Ryan, please, it's Lily Morrison." "Well, Chambers now, but Lily." There was a pause. Then, "Lily? Wow, dude. It's been almost 10 years. His voice was warmer than I expected. Familiar. Safe. "I'm sorry to call like this, but I need to ask, are you working with a man named Matthew Chambers?" Another pause. "Yes. We're finalizing a deal with him next week. Why?" I swallowed. "He's my husband, and right now he's in Lake Como with my sister, lying to both of us." Silence. Then, "Damn." I told him everything. The stolen language, the matching designs. His reaction shifted from surprise to serious. I could practically hear his mind turning gears. "Can you meet me tomorrow?" he asked. "I'm in Falls Church for a site visit." I hesitated. "I have kids." "Bring them," he said. "And that proposal." "Please." I hung up and stared at my reflection in the dark screen. For the first time in 24 hours, my hands stopped shaking. It wasn't rage. It wasn't grief. It was purpose. And purpose, I realized, is what comes right before the storm. He stood when he saw us, his expression unreadable for a moment, until it softened. I hadn't seen Ryan in almost a decade, but standing there, same crooked smile, same thoughtful eyes, I felt something shift inside me. Not romantic, not yet, just safe, like someone had just pressed the brakes on a car that had been skidding too fast for too long. He reached out and gently touched my shoulder. "You okay?" he asked, voice quiet. I opened my mouth to say yes, but what came out was a laugh, thin and brittle. "No," I admitted, "but I'm better now." He didn't press, just nodded, held the door open as the kids scampered in. Once we were seated and the kids had their cocoa, Ryan asked, "Why didn't you ever call? After everything?" I shrugged. Life got loud and messy. And Matthew, he didn't like when I brought up the past. Especially you. Ryan raised an eyebrow. "I always wondered why you stopped answering. I figured maybe you'd moved on." "I tried," I said, "but I think I just got stuck." He stirred his coffee slowly. "You don't look stuck now." I gave a weak smile. Number now. I look like a woman who just found out her husband's sleeping with her sister and stealing business ideas to impress his next investors. Ryan gave a short laugh. "You look like a woman who's about to do something about it." I slid the folder across the table. "This is the proposal he submitted to your team." He opened it slowly, his eyes scanning the documents with a careful precision that made my stomach twist. "These are almost identical to our Pittsburgh development," he said, flipping the pages. "Same community space language, same material sourcing plan. Even the name of the initiative is similar. Lily, this is intellectual property theft." "I figured as much," I said, my tone sharper than intended. "He's never talked about any of these ideas. They're not his, they're yours." Ryan leaned back. "I don't take this lightly. If we'd signed this deal, my company would have been liable for building on stolen concepts. There's more, I added. I found older sketches, designs he never shared with anyone. They match your earlier projects almost line for line. Ryan exhaled slowly. Then he's done this before. We sat in silence for a moment, the weight of it all settling between us. He's in Lake Como right now, I said, voice quieter. With Alexandra, laughing, planning to divorce me. Ryan's jaw tightened. I'm sorry, truly. Something in his eyes made me feel like I wasn't crazy, like I was seen. I don't want revenge, I told him. I want control. I want to know what's mine. And I want him to know he can't just rewrite my life while I'm still living it. Ryan nodded. Let me help. I blinked. Why? Because I remember who you were before all this, and I think she's still in there. We locked eyes. She was. I could feel her waking up. Each action felt like a brick lay beneath my feet, creating solid ground where there had once been only fog. But I didn't stop there. I logged into our shared bank account, something I hadn't done in months, maybe years. Matthew always handled the finances. Or rather, he made sure I stayed out of them. But this time, I scrolled through every transaction, every transfer, every hidden trail he thought I wouldn't find. Small amounts, quietly moved over weeks. Enough to avoid suspicion. Enough to start over without me. I took screenshots, downloaded statements, everything documented. Then I opened my own account, under my maiden name. At the bank, Janet, the same personal banker who helped us set up our wedding account years ago, raised an eyebrow. Mr. Chambers not joining you today? She asked. I smiled, steady and cool. Number he won't be joining me again. Next I met with a divorce attorney, Patricia Miller, referred by a friend who whispered the contact like a lifeline. I told her everything. The affair, the stolen ideas, the accounts. She didn't flinch. You may not be on paper, Patricia said, but Virginia law protects homemaker spouses. You supported him while he built that company. That makes you part of it. She leaned forward, eyes sharp. Don't confront him yet. Build your case. Secure your future. Then strike once, clean and hard. Her words rang in my ears as I packed the kids' clothes later that night. I wasn't just preparing for a trip. I was preparing for liberation. Ryan called the next morning. He's left 3 voicemails already, he said, referring to Matthew. Panicking. Good, I replied. By then I had everything. The proposal, the copied designs, the access logs, even a few of Matthew's scribbled notes on how to tweak Ryan's ideas to make them more profitable. He was so arrogant he documented his theft. We coordinated the meeting from Monaco. Ryan's turf. Matthew still believed the deal was alive. I let him. He'd follow that trail straight to his own reckoning. That evening, after putting the kids to bed, I stared at myself in the bathroom mirror. 7 years of compromise stared back. I picked up a pair of scissors and cut my hair, not because it was symbolic, not because it was dramatic, but because I wanted to look in the mirror and see someone new, someone mine. The next day, I withdrew half of our accessible savings, well within legal limits, and transferred them into my personal account, enough to cover housing, legal fees, childcare, whatever came next. I contacted our family doctor, got copies of the kids' records. I made photocopies of birth certificates, social security cards, passports, booked plane tickets. Every action felt like a quiet rebellion. Ryan's team worked in parallel. They formally canceled the deal with Matthew's company, citing creative differences to keep him from panicking too soon. But when Ryan finally took Matthew's 6th call and floated the idea of rescheduling in Monaco, Matthew bit hard. He's flying out next Tuesday. First class, Ryan told me. Of course he is. That Friday I packed the last of our things. Andrew clutched his travel backpack with wide-eyed excitement. Ella skipped down the hallway with her stuffed unicorn bouncing on one arm. They thought we were going on an adventure, and we were. But not the kind Matthew imagined. This wasn't just a trip. It was the beginning of the end, on my terms. And for once, I wasn't scared of what came next. Matthew arrived early. We watched him from the security feed in the lobby, pacing, checking his watch, adjusting his cufflinks like a man walking into what he thought was the biggest deal of his career. He had no idea he was walking into the end of it. In the conference room, Ryan and his legal team were calm, collected. The documents sat neatly stacked on the table, the evidence waiting patiently. I stood just off to the side, half concealed by one of the support columns. Not hidden, just delayed. I wanted him to walk in blind. "Matthew," Ryan greeted, his tone cool and neutral. Matthew stepped in, smile ready, hand extended. Ryan didn't take it, just gestured to the seat across from him. That's when I saw it. The first flicker of uncertainty in Matthew's eyes. He sat. "I appreciate you reconsidering," he said quickly. "I know the timeline's tight, but we can fast-track everything. You won't regret it." Ryan didn't respond right away. Instead, he slid a folder across the table. "These are side-by-side comparisons of your proposal with our previously published projects, including language, layout, and design elements." Matthew opened the folder, glanced at the first page, and went pale. "There must be a misunderstanding," he said. "These are just industry standards." "No," Ryan replied flatly. "They're copy-pasted concepts, including community features and phrasing we've used in other projects, down to the exact wording." That's when I stepped out. Matthew's eyes locked on mine, wide with disbelief. "Lily?" he said, like I was a ghost. I walked slowly to the table, placed another stack of papers in front of him, printouts from his laptop, handwritten notes comparing his version with Ryan's original work, sketches he claimed as his own. "I found these in your office," I said quietly. "The same office you told me to stay out of. The same one you kept locked for years while I raised our children and played the supportive wife." He stood up, knocking his chair back. "What the hell is this? You've been unstable lately, Lily. You took our kids and ran off to Europe. You can't be trusted." Ryan didn't even flinch. "We've verified every piece of evidence independently. The deal is canceled. We're also consulting with legal on next steps." Matthew's mask cracked. "You're throwing away $1 million deal because of her." "No," I said calmly. "He's ending it because of you." I looked him straight in the eye, no shaking, no tears. "You didn't just cheat on me. You cheated in business. You built your success on stolen work and lies. And you thought you'd get away with it because you always have." He was silent, just breathing hard, staring at the papers in front of him like they'd betrayed him too. Ryan's legal counsel handed over the termination documents. "You're no longer permitted to use any concept, visual, or phrasing associated with Callaway development, effective immediately." Matthew scribbled his signature, hands shaking. When it was over, the team began to file out. Ryan stood, but I stayed in place. "One more thing," I said, pulling out my phone. "Let's get a photo for the memories." Matthew blinked. Ryan smiled softly, moving to stand beside me. Monaco's glittering harbor stretched behind us through the floor-to-ceiling glass. We posed. Nothing flashy, just composed, professional, whole. "Marina," I said to Ryan's assistant, "would you mind?" She snapped 3 quick shots. I picked the best one, and right there, in front of the man who betrayed me, I sent it. To both Matthew and Alexandra. "Thought you should know where I am. The children send their love." Matthew stormed out. I didn't follow. The end of us was the beginning of me. The courtroom was colder than I expected. Matthew sat across from me, flanked by his high-powered attorney, Brandon Ellis, the type known for turning divorces into battlegrounds. His tie was sharp, his smirk sharper. I had Patricia. She didn't need theatrics, just facts. A calm voice, and the mountain of evidence we'd collected over the past few months. His secret accounts, the plagiarized business proposals, the recorded phone calls. When the judge entered, everything went quiet. Brandon tried to spin it, said I was unstable, said I abducted the children to Europe. Patricia didn't flinch. She laid out our timeline and our communications, even the message Matthew had sent approving the trip. And then she played the audio of his voice from Lake Como, laughing about being with my sister on my birthday. The judge's expression said it all. After reviewing the records, he ruled swiftly would have primary custody of Andrew and Ella. I would keep our home. And despite not being listed as a partner, I'd receive a fair share of Matthew's business assets based on my role in its growth. Matthew didn't argue. Not anymore. The deal with Callaway Corp had fallen apart. Word had spread. His company's reputation was in ruins. As we left the courtroom, he looked at me, tired, sunken, bitter. "I didn't think you had it in you," he said. I met his gaze. "That's always been your biggest mistake." Back home, I opened a drawer and I pulled out the old envelope from my teaching certification. My name stared back at me. Lily Morrison. I'd filed the paperwork to legally reclaim it that morning. The house felt different, lighter. The wedding photo was gone. So were the monogram towels, the fake leather planner with Mrs. Chambers in cursive. I donated the last of Matthew's suits to Goodwill and repainted the guest room and my new office. Some days still hurt, especially when Ella asks why Uncle Alex doesn't visit anymore. But more and more often I feel something else. Peace. I reconnected with my parents, too. The awkward tension from years of silence faded as we sat at the kitchen table just talking. About life, about the kids, about how hard it is to admit you were wrong. "I'm proud of you," my dad said quietly. "It takes real strength to stand up the way you did." I smiled. I finally believed him. One Saturday afternoon, Ryan stopped by. He wasn't flashy, just thoughtful. He handed me a small gift bag. Inside was a beautiful leather planner, deep navy with Lily Morrison embossed in gold. "For your new schedule," he said. "Classes, play dates, world domination, whatever fits." We laughed. It wasn't romantic. Not yet. But it was steady. Real. Later that night, after the kids were asleep, we sat on the back porch sipping tea. I told him I'd been accepted into Hudson State's accelerated teaching program, specializing in education for under-resourced communities. "Back to the classroom in 2 years," I said, a little nervous. "Not starting over," Ryan said. "Just continuing from where you left off." There's a photo on my nightstand now, not of a wedding, not of a vacation. It's me, standing in front of my new classroom, smiling. It's not perfect, life rarely is, but it's mine again, on my terms. I used to think family was something you protected no matter what, that if you tried hard enough, sacrificed enough, smiled enough, love would stay. But now I know better. Family isn't who shares your blood. It's who respects your boundaries. And love? Love isn't what keeps you small. It's what makes you rise. I didn't just survive Matthew. I outgrew him, and that was the best revenge of all.